Hello, ladies and gentlemen, how are you? Well, it's that time again. It is time for another episode of Agony Uncle. Thank you very much for watching my videos, The Great Apostate. I very much appreciate it. It's going well. I'm enjoying it. It's still ticking away. There's always stuff to talk about, isn't there? I've got a new question. Haven't had one in a little while, so I'm happy to do this. And it's one that makes me sort of feel bad. So I'm gonna do my best to give you some advice. This is from somebody who we're going to call Jay. And the question is, do you have any advice for a 16-year-old kid who wants his father to get out of this cult? I can't stand it, and it's making my grades hurt bad. I try to tell him, but to no prevail. Any advice would be helpful. Now, I've sort of cleaned up the grammar there, but I'm assuming that English is not your first language, Jay. It's not a criticism, it's just a comment. So if you have trouble understanding this, contact me again if you've seen this and we'll talk further. Uh, First of all, I would say I feel very bad for your position. You're only 16 years old and you're worried about your family, but you're at a very young age and an important time when you're getting education going, when you're deciding what you're going to be doing with your life, and this crap's sort of hovering over your head in a horrible way. I really appreciate that you feel for your dad like this, but I'm going to take it on myself. Although I'm not quite old enough to have 16-year-olds, I actually am. If I'd been promiscuous younger, if so I'm going to take it on myself to act as your dad in this, if you don't mind, Jay. What I would say is this: whether your dad is in a cult or whether he's not in a cult, he loves you, okay? And if you were my son, I have a son and a daughter. I mostly shout at them, but I love them, and whatever they do, I will always love them. And my priority is to them. If there was a burning building, I would get them out. And if I died in the process, I would not worry one jot about it, okay? Because I love them and put them above myself completely, okay? Uh, your dad feels that way too, although it's slightly skewed because of cult thinking. So, number one, speaking in loco parentis, in the place of your father, that's how your dad feels, or at least it's how he would feel if he was normal and not in a cult. So the first part of this message is number one, Jay, it's about you. You're only 16. Get your grades back up. Get your education prioritized. If you can't fix things for your dad, there's always another day. And if there isn't always another day, it's still about you because you've got a life to lead. And your dad would tell you the same thing if he wasn't in a cult. Okay? So number one, you gotta look after you first here, okay? Be a bit selfish. I know it's hard. When I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, my parents were still Jehovah's Witnesses for some time. Not that long, but a year to 18 months. And I did find it very difficult, very unpleasant, very stressful. Now, so that's first and foremost. You've got to look after you. You've got to get your education going. There's no point you saying, I know it's a cult. Thank God I'm not a part of it. If it still drags you down by getting you no education. Okay? Moving on. How do you get your dad out of this cult? Well, you can't get your dad out of the cult. This myth, I've said this before, this myth that comes from sort of American Moonies days when they were big in the 70s, that, oh, we're just going to kidnap somebody and, deprogram them was the phrase. It didn't work then. It doesn't work now, okay? If you're in a cult, you've got to learn you're in a cult. It's bad and it's brutal and it's ugly and it's messy. Here's what it is. He's got to do it for himself, okay? That's not to say that you can't help him do it, okay? You can be there for him, you can support him, you can love him, you can do all those good things. But it's not your responsibility to get anyone out of a cult, and you're not able to even if it was, okay? How can you help him? Well, I have suggested this before many times, and I'm going to suggest it to you. I used to approach my parents with what I would call truth bombs. It was mostly my mum, but she was the most dedicated. My dad probably would have followed, either way. But what I did is I threw truth bombs at her. Now, it was easier for me because I wasn't living with them at that time. So when they fell out of me, I could just run off and leave them for a week and then come back and all was well. But what I did do is I asked them questions. I asked them, specific things like what would cause you to abandon your child. You know, I asked them difficult questions about the truth. The truth, we all know, to put in brackets. So I asked those kind of questions, and I did my best to make being a Jehovah's Witness as intellectually uncomfortable for my family as possible. And when all was said and done, eventually they did fall out of love of the truth. And the question that made them fall out was when I pointed out to them that Jehovah's Witnesses didn't used to have to get married. And now, of course, it's very important that they get married because they didn't believe that they didn't believe that Caesar represented the governments of the world. And so, well, you don't have to get married because they've got no authority over you. They changed their opinion. I pointed this out to my mum. She didn't believe me. Boom, here, have a book about it, Mum. And then that's all she wrote. I'm convinced that for the vast majority of Jehovah's Witnesses, all you need to do is have a moment of clarity for them and get them to open their eyes and say, hey, okay, I'll read that book. What's the worst that can happen? Nothing. It'll be great, mate. If you can get them to read something like that, then say, okay, that's a big thing. And maybe they'll leave, okay? If you're looking for advice on the subjects that you could talk to them about, talk to them about jw.org, the new website. Talk to them about the constant begging for money. Go to jwfacts.com, where you can get loads of details on the nonsense, on how wrong it is. And it's very important for you to, It's very important for you to prioritize the questions that you ask your dad, the things that are important to you. There's no point me saying, hey, ask him about the child abuse issue if that's no big deal to your family. If it's never even come up in your congregation. If the blood issue's been a problem, then raise the blood issue. It's simple. But you'll find a lot of that on jwfacts.com. So this is my suggestion for you, Jay. I'm sorry it's not, there's no simple answers. There never is simple answers, especially, and as you get older, there's even less. But I want you to bear in mind that the most important part of my advice is the first part. Okay? If your dad gets out of the truth tomorrow, whether he gets out tomorrow or whether he gets out in 25 years, okay, I guarantee you he will say this. He will say, thank God that bald guy on the internet told you to get your education sorted out, okay? If you find that there's a problem with, your position of living with your family, you being a non-believer and them being Jehovah's Witnesses, or him being a Jehovah's Witness, if that becomes an issue, then I would look seriously, although Jehovah's Witnesses, would shun it, I'd look seriously at maybe the military or the Coast Guard, some kind of job that can give you space and distance from them, okay? It also gives you guaranteed bed and breakfast, which is a nice thing too. I hope this has helped you. I hope it's given you some encouragement. People do change their minds. People leave. I spoke to a fella yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. A guy from my old congregation called Robert Brown. Just one second. Yes, Daniel.
My arm broke off here. That's okay, because now it's a puppy.
Your arm broke off. Look, it's a Spider-Man. Yes, Daniel. Say hello.
Hello.
Right, take this and leave the room now. Right, get out now, please. Daniel, bye-bye. Close the door, please. Daniel, close the door.
No, I'm Ninja Turtle. Hello, people.
Ninja Turtle, that's right.
I got shield, I got thing, and I'm magic.
Go. Love you too, Emily. Close the door, please. Good Lord. Where was I? Sorry, Jay. So anyway, as I was speaking to you earlier, before we were rudely interrupted, I spoke to a guy that used to be in my Kingdom Hall, a guy called Robert Brown. Now, I wouldn't say my family and their family were best of friends, but, he's a peer to my parents, and whenever I left the Witnesses, he was always a very, what's the word we have over here, balchy Jehovah's Witness. He was always arguing about things he didn't quite believe in, but he was still dedicated, and even when I left the Jehovah's Witness and saw him a few times, he'd read all the Raymond Franz books and everything, but still hadn't convinced himself. Don't know why. Still thought it was somehow the truth. But anyway, I saw him yesterday, and the first words out of his mouth were, I've left. What a waste of 62 years. You got to look on the positive side, sure. You also got to look on the negative side, that maybe your dad will be that guy one day. Doesn't matter, because it's about you right now. So I hope this advice helps you. Like and subscribe if you like and subscribe. Send your problems to me. If I can help, I will. Thank you for watching The Great Apostate.